Also, by using only ground solutions, we have the ability to handle commodities that otherwise would be considered dangerous goods. So, a good example of that would be perfumes. We have the ability to handle perfumes from US to Mexico without technically calling them dangerous goods because they're not getting on a plane.
This is Outside the Box with Asendia USA, a podcast educating US-based brands, marketplaces, and e-tailers on international shipping topics and how they can expand their global e-commerce footprint.
Back to another episode of Outside the Box with Asendia USA podcast, where we continue the conversation where we left off last week. So good job to you guys on that as well. Yeah, and then okay, so we look at, I think Jason might have just even brought up, but when we look at, I'm not asking for you guys to give away the secret sauce to everybody, that all the listeners and viewers, but when we look at the network, the routing, if you will, too, how do we manage, let's say like first mile, middle mile, final mile, as much as you're able to, discuss and things of that nature. I'd love to just be able to share with that, as long as it's helpful for, again, listeners and viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to speak to as much of the product itself without, like you said, giving away the secret sauce.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say some things that I think make it special is the first being that this solution is 100% ground. So we have zero air transits involved from the US to Mexico. And while this may seem like a slower option on the surface, using Laredo as the gateway and trucking the parcels over the border rather than flying them keep us from injecting them in crowded airports within Mexico. So we put them on a truck, they get on a line, they cross the bridge from the US into Mexico. And then from there, once their customs cleared, they're free to go. Whereas a lot of times when you see people putting parcels on planes into Mexico, it gets stuck in an airport. There's millions of parcels in this airport and things can get lost in the shuffle. So I think that's one of the things where when people hear ground versus air, they automatically think that it's just a slower service. But I think the way we have it set up for Mexico makes it actually puts us at an advantage. Also, by using only ground solutions, we have the ability to handle commodities that otherwise would be considered dangerous goods. So a good example of that would be perfumes. We have the ability to handle perfumes from US to Mexico without technically calling them dangerous goods because they're not getting on a plane. So that's another advantage that we have from using only ground solutions, is that it really expands the amount of commodities we can ship from the US to Mexico as opposed to air.
Mexico's e-commerce market is booming, and the time to expand is now. Consumers are mobile-first, connected, and spending more than ever on fashion, electronics, and everyday goods. Mexican e-commerce is no longer just big city-driven. Shoppers nationwide are buying online. But success depends on getting deliveries right, navigating regulations, and meeting high customer expectations. Asendia USA is your trusted logistics partner. With flexible solutions, customs expertise, and reliable networks, we get your parcels to Mexican shoppers quickly and compliantly. Expand with confidence. Unlock Mexico with Asendia USA. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to download our Mexico e-commerce ebook today.
That's a great point. I mean, that's a huge market, right? In terms of, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but the fragrances, cosmetics, skincares, are there different rules for those categories when it comes to some of them being potentially DG? I know that, like with health items, like a nutraceutical, there's certainly a different category there. But I mean, there's huge markets for those types of things as well. And certainly the desire in Mexico for the skincare, cosmetics, those types of things is there. So that's great to know.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on what I said before about the product, I know what Leslie and I have been able to set up has been really great, but the service would not be what it is without a lot of the people at Asendia and a lot of the teams we work with. So I would be remiss not to mention that we have an incredible IT team that when anything breaks with our APIs between us and our vendors, they're always on top of things, fixing, tracking, things like that. Our operations team and delivery experience teams, they work tirelessly to make sure the parcels are positioned in the best possible way to have successful deliveries. For example, if we have customers that give us bad addresses, our delivery experience team and operations team work together to make sure they clean those addresses, and we do that free of charge, which I don't think you really see anywhere else in this industry. If we get parcels that our customers say forget to assign recipient tax IDs for, they'll work with Leslie and I, and we'll work with the vendors and our partners to figure out what's that recipient's tax ID and get that entered into the data. So it's a lot of different groups within the company working together that makes the product itself really successful.
Yep.
Yes, I totally agree, and I just want to jump in and say, absolutely, we are surrounded here with a team, and it's such a team. And one other comment, something Mike and I are working on today is when you talk about mile partner, is that at the final, in Mexico or in the USA, we all know that there's not one company or one or two companies that can do everything right or the best. So what we're constantly doing daily, and today we're working on an add-on as well, but what we're constantly doing is checking how we are in the competitive market. How are we performing, and what services are we missing, and where's our price point? And we have a great team inside Asendia that helps us do that. And where we find that we have holes, we try to fill those. And where we're lagging, we need a new final mile partner. So we're just constantly juggling that to try to be the best we can be.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for listening. Tune in again next week when we continue this discussion.
Share, subscribe, and download our podcast. To learn more about today's topic or for a free consultation, email us at ecommerce.usa@asendia.com. Come back for more insightful discussions on e-commerce shipping to Canada, Mexico, and worldwide.